You've likely seen the headlines, maybe even felt it a bit when you're checking out prices on, well, everyday things seem to be nudging upwards.
Yeah, it's definitely something people are noticing.
So for this deep dive, we're focusing on a really significant signal: Walmart. As America's largest retailer, they've actually issued warnings about potential price increases on a whole range of goods.
And what's interesting here is the mix of reasons behind it. We're looking at news reports covering Walmart's own statements about tariffs,
Right.
and also some deeper analysis pieces that look at Walmart's, let's say, complex relationship with its global supply chain, especially China,
Yeah.
but also their newer efforts elsewhere.
Exactly. So our goal today is to really unpack that connection for you. How do these tariffs, which can seem kind of abstract, actually translate into price changes you might see on the shelf?
And how does Walmart's huge global sourcing network fit into it all?
Okay, let's dig in.
Let's start with the timing. This really kicked off in mid-May 2025. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon, he made this announcement.
And it wasn't just a casual remark, was it? It was during an analyst call.
Precisely. Right after they'd reported pretty strong first quarter earnings. Their sales were actually up 3% to $112 billion. Solid numbers.
Which makes what they said next even more significant. Despite those good sales figures,
Yeah.
they didn't give a profit outlook for the next quarter. They specifically cited, and this is the quote, a chaotic environment because of these tariffs.
Wow. For a company that size to hold back on guidance, that's a big deal. It definitely sends ripples.
It really does. It makes you wonder about the broader economy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When the biggest player says costs are rising and they might have to raise prices, it's a sign others could follow. McMillan did say the increases would likely be gradual, not all at once.
Okay, so not sticker shock overnight necessarily.
Probably not. But importantly, he did confirm they've already started happening. It might mean we're sort of shifting away from that era of rock bottom prices we got used to. That could affect, your own budget.
And did he give specifics? What kind of items are we talking about?
He did. He mentioned imports from China, things like electronics, toys, the usual suspects maybe.
Things many of us buy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also everyday groceries, things from Central and South America,
Like what?
coffee, avocados, bananas even, from places like Colombia, Peru, Costa Rica. Because these are often imported directly, they're right in the line of fire for import duties.
So it's hitting both manufactured goods and basic food items.
Yeah.
That really broadens the potential impact.
It does. And he also noted that Walmart is, for now, absorbing some of these extra costs. They aren't immediately passing everything on to you.
Trying to hold the line on their everyday low prices image, I suppose.
To some extent, yes.
Yeah.
But the fact that even they are struggling to absorb it all shows how sensitive these supply chains are and how much pressure these external factors can create.
Which naturally makes you think about the rest of the retail world. It's probably not just Walmart facing this, right?
Highly unlikely. Analysts are certainly pointing that way. Neil Saunders from Global Data put it pretty bluntly. He said, basically, if Walmart's coming out and saying prices are going to rise, everyone else is going to have to follow suit.
Because they set the benchmark in a way.
They really do.
Yeah.
Their scale gives them leverage. But if even they feel the pinch enough to raise prices, smaller retailers with maybe thinner margins, they'll likely face even tougher choices.
Which connects directly back to what you might be seeing on your grocery receipts or when you're shopping elsewhere.
Exactly. It points towards a wider trend. So, okay, if this is happening across the board, what's the deal with the tariffs causing all this concern?
Well, here's where it gets a little complicated. Just before Walmart made this warning, there were reports about a potential new trade deal, or at least an understanding, with China.
Oh, right. I remember that.
Yeah, the news suggested certain tariffs might be paused for 90 days, and the import tax on Chinese goods could be reduced to 30%. That was down from a potential much higher rate, like 145%, that was apparently on the table in some scenarios.
Okay, 30% is still significant, but definitely better than 145%.
Right. So that leads to the big question. If there was this sign of easing tensions, why is Walmart still signaling these price hikes?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think to answer that, we really need to look closely at Walmart's supply chain history, especially with China.
It's been a cornerstone for them for a long time.
For decades, China was absolutely central. The data shows that even in 2023, something like 60% of Walmart's imports still came from China.
60%. That's still the majority, even if it's down.
It is down. It was closer to 80% back in 2018, so they have been diversifying.
At 60%, that's still a huge exposure if tariffs are applied to Chinese goods, even at 30%.
Right. So that diversification, while happening, hasn't removed their reliance. And you can see why China was so attractive for so long.
The scale, the cost.
Exactly. The sheer scale of manufacturing, the efficiency, the established infrastructure, the skilled labor, it's incredibly hard to replicate quickly somewhere else. It's what allowed Walmart to really push that everyday low prices promise for years.
And they didn't just buy stuff there, right? They invested.
Oh, absolutely. They invested heavily in China's own logistics, building distribution centers, streamlining things within the country. Plus, they have a big retail presence there themselves, over 300 stores. They're deeply embedded.
Okay, so back to the tariffs. Even at a reduced 30%, that's still a major added cost on 60% of their imports compared to, say, a zero tariff situation.
A huge cost. And there have been reports suggesting Walmart was trying to push some of that cost back onto their Chinese suppliers, asking them for lower prices.
Which probably didn't go over too well.
Apparently it caused some friction, yeah? Tensions with Chinese authorities were mentioned. It's a very tricky balancing act for Walmart.
So this is where the diversification comes in again. They're trying to reduce that China exposure.
They are. And they've made real moves.
Yeah.
Vietnam's a big one. They source billions worth of goods there now. Clothing, shoes, electronics, household stuff.
And India.
India, too, increasingly important, but like we said,
China's still #1.
by a significant margin.
Yeah.
So shifting the supply chain provides some cushion, maybe mitigates the worst effects, but it can't fully insulate them overnight from tariffs on Chinese goods.
And it's important to remember, this isn't just about China.
Not at all. Macmillan specifically called out potential price hikes on goods from Central and South America because of tariffs.
Right, the coffee, avocados, bananas.
Exactly. And we should also consider Mexico. Walmart's been investing more there, sourcing things like beer and berries. Tariffs on Mexican goods would add another layer of cost pressure. It's a multi-front issue.
It really is complex, and it's interesting to think about how shoppers, how you listening might be reacting. Walmart CFO John David Rainey mentioned something interesting.
What was that?
He said they've actually been attracting new customers recently across all income levels.
Huh. More people coming to Walmart. Why do you think that is?
Well, one theory is maybe people are sensing these potential price increases coming online, and they're actively looking for value now, maybe comparison shopping more and ending up at Walmart. If you're watching your budget, that might make sense.
That's a really plausible idea. Sort of a preemptive move to find deals before things potentially get more expensive everywhere. Did Rainey say if people are actually buying less, though?
He noted that while people might be concerned, their overall shopping behavior hasn't drastically changed yet. People are still buying things, but maybe, like you said, with a keener eye for value.
Interesting. Watching for deals, maybe switching brands, but not cutting back massively just yet.
Seems like it. So, okay, let's try to boil this down. What are the key things we should take away from this whole situation with Walmart and potential price hikes?
Well, first, I think it's clear that tariffs, even if they get adjusted, are creating real cost pressures. And for retailers like Walmart operating on tight margins, it seems pretty likely that at least some of that cost increase will eventually reach you, the consumer.
It has to go somewhere.
Exactly. Second, this is just a powerful example of how interconnected everything is in global trade. Policy decisions made miles away can directly hit your wallet when you go shopping.
It's not abstract theory. It's the price of bananas.
Pretty much.
Oh.
And finally, even with some potential easing on the China front, the situation is still really uncertain. Tariffs could affect goods from many different places, not just China. So those price increases Walmart warned about still seem like a very real possibility.
Yeah, this whole thing with Walmart definitely gives us a maybe slightly worrying look into just how complex these global supply chains are and how vulnerable the prices we pay are to these big shifts.
It really does. And maybe it leaves us with a final thought for you listening. How might these potential price changes affect your own shopping? Where you choose to spend your money?
And thinking even bigger, maybe beyond just tariffs, what other things do you think might shape the cost of everyday goods in the future?